All right, so today, what's the workshop today?
Can't believe it's not, but
Photoshop.
I just wanted to do that. I can't believe it's, yes, I can't believe it's not Photoshop, which is
Photoshop.
a double negative, really, but it's still
Exactly.
Yes.
I can't believe that it's not Photoshop, or you can't believe that it is Photoshop. Never mind.
Can't believe it's not.
It's not. It's a double negative, but
Okay,
you
so
get it.
all right, so we're gonna go ahead and let these folks take it away. And who are we starting off with?
Me. Jade.
Of course, Jaden is kicking us off with "I can't believe it's not Photoshop." Take it away, Jaden.
All right, so welcome guys to today's workshop. I can't believe it's not Photoshop. We're gonna be using a browser-based website called Pixlr.com to edit some photos. So we're gonna teach you some cool editing techniques that you could pretty much translate to Photoshop, but we're gonna be using not Photoshop today. But of course, before we jump into the interface of this app, we wanted to talk a little bit about careers in photo editing. We always like to talk to you guys about what careers you can pursue with these skills that we're teaching you week by week. So you'll notice on the right, on the left, there's a little list of different careers. Usually photo editing techniques can be applied to things such as creating visuals for a website or for social media applications, whether you are an entrepreneur and starting your own business and trying to promote a product or a service, or you're working for somebody else's business. We as human beings are very visual people. So photos play a really important role in promoting things, right? When we're trying to sell something, or whether it's a physical product or a service. Not only that, but we come from a library, and of course, when you're browsing for books, I'm sure that what you see on the cover kind of influences whether or not you want to pick up that book. These images and these photos are what catch our attention and make us interested in learning more about stuff. So in photo editing, you can either go for stuff like editing pictures for magazines, books, newspapers, or like I mentioned before, websites or social media for business. Now, of course, when you're getting into photo editing, we're gonna cover a lot of tools and a lot of stuff today. But there are 5 major principles that I really wanted us to focus on today. So number 1, super important, can't stress this enough. Please use layers. Always use layers. Don't ever edit the original picture. If you notice in this photo, at the very bottom, there's a little thumbnail of the image that says background. There's a little lock on it. So that's the original picture. And by putting a lock on it, you pretty much prevent yourself from going back and touching it and making any mistakes. And then you'll notice there's a layer right on top of it that says edit. So they copied the picture onto a separate layer so that they can mess around with that one without affecting the original photo. So this is super, super important. Always use layers. Number 2, less is more. Sometimes we might get a little bit carried away with some of the effects and all the cool stuff you can do in your pictures. But if you're going for something natural and believable, you don't want to do it a little bit too over the top. You'll notice that the picture on the right of the girl, her skin looks a little too smooth. Like it's just been smoothed out so much that she doesn't have a single wrinkle on her face. And when we smile or when we close our eyes, like we have little wrinkles on our forehead, around our eyes or our cheeks. So you don't want to go too crazy with the editing. And then
perfect.
The picture on the left, yeah, it's too
Perfect.
perfect. It's like an unrealistic standard. And the image on the left, you see these seagulls. It looks kind of funny because they're all kind of clustered really close together. Birds don't look like they would kind of flock like that so closely. Like it looks kind of fake because of the placement of the birds and how many of them there are. So sometimes less is more. You don't want to go too crazy with it. The next step is removing unnecessary elements. Now, this is one of the most popular forms of using Photoshop or photo editing programs because you get to do all these really cool illusion type of effects. You'll notice in the first one, the guy, like half his body's missing. So they did something to kind of make the building appear and make him disappear to do that cool effect. The banana and the lipstick, they basically replaced the inside of the banana with a picture of an orange, and then the lipstick with the cactus, which is really cool because it's almost like a way of promoting a type of lipstick. The name of it is Prickly, and they used the cactus, so that's pretty cool. So you can do these type of effects by removing certain elements of your photos. Next, we have small changes to enhance image quality. This kind of ties in with the less is more. Sometimes just a simple tweak can really make an impact on your picture. You'll notice the picture with the girl in the red dress, by increasing the saturation and making her dress this really vibrant red, she really stands out in front of the more muted forest behind her. In the second photo, there's all these waves rippling and the cliffside, but there's this little twinge of green right there in the middle that also draws your eye towards a certain focal point. And then in the last picture, it has this cool green and purple kind of lighting. And it seems like they even added a tiny little bit of what we call a gradient, where it goes from one color, like it's kind of purplish towards the bottom and it becomes white towards the top. So they just did tiny little tweaks to the color in these photos and it really made things pop. So sometimes it just, something as simple as that is enough to really enhance your pictures. And then lastly, we have image size and resolution. This comes into play when you're getting ready to save your work and export it, which we'll talk about later in this webinar. But you'll see the picture on the right of the fighting fish. It's like super detailed. You can see every single wrinkle in this fish's fins. It almost looks like a dress. It's like fabric. It's really high definition. But then when we start to zoom in a little bit, it starts to get kind of fuzzy and pixelated. Remember, we talked a little bit about pixels in last week's webinar when we were learning about vectoring. The same thing applies for photographs as for vectors. Pixels and resolution are really important because they're gonna take into play how clear or sharp your image is gonna come out. And then lastly, this is a resource that I used for these pictures of examples that I showed you guys today. There's a website called Pexels, the way it's spelled right there, .com, that has free stock images. So if you guys want to kind of experiment, maybe you're not able to take photos of your own at this moment because it's kind of hard to go outside, you kind of just want to play around with stuff, Pexels.com has like an unlimited amount of free stock pictures that you guys can play around with. These are just a couple of cool ones that I pulled up, but I definitely recommend checking out Pexels.com and exploring that because they have a lot of stuff. It's pretty cool. That's pretty much it for my PowerPoint presentation. Without further ado, we're gonna get ready to jump into Pixlr. So when you go to Pixlr.com, it's gonna look like this. And there's actually two different versions of Pixlr. There's Pixlr E and Pixlr X. The only difference between them is that Pixlr X doesn't have as many features. It's a little bit more simplified, while Pixlr E has a lot more tools and features. So for today, we really want to get in depth with this. So we're going to play around with Pixlr E. I'm going to go ahead and tap on that. And once you open that, you'll notice here I have a couple of images. This is where your gallery will be. The good thing about Pixlr E is that it automatically saves your work, so you don't have to worry about losing your progress. Any photos or drawings or anything you work on will automatically pop up over here in your history window. Next, we have Create New and also Open Image. If you want to create a new canvas and start from scratch, you tap on Create New, and you'll notice this window pops up. Here, it already has some preset sizes. So if you're planning on making something for social media, like we did previously last week with the vectoring, you'll notice there's one here for Instagram, one for Facebook. So these are already pre-made sizes that you can already click by default. But if you wanted to custom make your own size canvas, there's this little window on the right-hand side that says width and height. So here you can custom type in the dimensions that you want to make the canvas whatever size you'd like. And then under name, you can give it a title. And then lastly here, there's a background tab. If you tap on this, these little color dots appear. If you don't check this off, you end up not having a background at all. And what that does is it makes your canvas transparent. Again, tying back into last week's webinar about vectors, we mentioned things about JPEGs and PNGs being two different types of files. So with no background, it ends up being a PNG, which means that it's going to be transparent. It's not going to have a background. But by putting a background, we have a solid color behind our picture. So it flattens the image. Right now I have it set to white because it's the longest, like little oval shape over here, but you can tap on any of these to change the color of your background. And by dragging this little circle around, you can also change the color there. But for the purpose of today's activity, we're actually going to open an image because we want to edit a picture. So I'm going to go ahead and on the left-hand side, click the blue button that says Open Image. It's going to pop up my photo library. Tap on that. I'm going to tap on all photos. And I'm going to pick the photo of this girl right here and hit done. And as you can see, when you select a photo, it automatically brings it into your canvas to start editing it. So without any further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Dinah, and she's going to familiarize us with the tools and interface of Pixlr.
Thanks, Jaden. Thank you for that lovely presentation. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Photo. Okay, guys. So like Jaden was showing us, he showed us how to open up an image. And now we're here in our editing interface. So let's begin. So I'm just going to walk you guys through some of the buttons that we have here, some top on the menu bar, and I'm going to be talking about the other panels and some of the tools. So beginning up here, this is your menu bar. Right along this is the Pixlr's interface, and let me see. Here you could find various options and commands, such as like file, edit, image, layer, and adjustments if you wish to like work with like the lighting and the brightness and contrast of your image that you're working on, your filters. These are other options as well. We won't go into them in detail, but just want to let you know. On our right-hand side, we have our panels. We have our navigate panels. Here it allows you to zoom in to a specific area. I like using, of course, you could use the zoom in and out with your mouse, but personally, I like the navigating panel because it allows you to really focus in. If you notice this red square rectangle up here, it helps you to really focus into a specific area. Let's say I want to focus just on the lips. I could drag it onto the lips, right? Zoom out. Next, we have our layers. This is obviously where we're going to be working along with our layers. As Jaden was mentioning, you always want to be working on, you don't want to be working on your original layer. This is my original picture here. You always want to be working on a different layer. So if you notice, I named this layer working layer. And right here in these, this menu bar right here, you're going to be able to find all the details for that one specific layer. So here you'll change the name. You could change the blend mode. You could unlock it, lock it, make it visible, hide it. You can merge them, or you could duplicate or delete the layer. Next, we have our history panel, and exactly what it says. It is a history panel, and it keeps all the little, the history of all your clicks or anything you've worked on. So if you make a mistake or you want to go back, you might want to go exactly to that point and go back into your history. Next, we're going to be looking into our left-hand side, and we're going to be talking about the toolbar. Here in the toolbar, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 selection tools. And we're going to talk about each one of them a little bit. We're going to talk first with the move or the arrange tool. And if you notice, every time I click on a different tool, up here, there's tool options. So each tool has a different options, right? If I click on the marquee tool, it gives me different options as well. So again, our move tool, if you have some sort of an object or an element within your image that you want to move, you click on this tool to be able to move it. Your marquee tool is a selection tool, and it gives you exactly a square or a rectangle, and it selects it. It does exactly what you're asking it to. So let's deselect that. That's going to be Command D. And next we have a lasso tool. So you see how the marquee tool is a selection tool, but it just gives you a square or a rectangle. Well, the lasso tool allows you for it to be more free. So let's say I just want to focus on this specific eyebrow. Well, then this selection wasn't the best selection, but you get the idea. It's to select a specific object. The wand tool, similar concept. The only thing is that this tool actually selects certain colors. So for example, it's selecting right now all the colors that look similar to where I clicked. Let's deselect that. And next we have the cropping tool. Same concept, exactly as it says. It's going to crop the image. Let's say I only want to focus on this. I would click enter and it will crop it. But I do not want that, so I'm going to Command Z that. The cutting tool, Hector's going to go more into detail on how to use the cutting tool, but it's exactly what it says. It's pretty much to cut and remove backgrounds, cut out certain objects so that you're able to like crop them or trim them. Of course, it works with individual layers. Next, we have the liquify tool. So this tool is actually a blending tool. And this blending tool actually helps to grow or maybe shrink certain areas. And I'll show you what I did in the final product. Because if you notice, this layer right here, this is the layer that I'm not showing. This is the final editing layer. And as you could see here in his face, you see how one eye is bigger than the other. That's pretty much what it does. It can grow or expand certain sections of the face. It works best on faces. Next is this is my favorite tool, which is the healing tool. It's a spot correcting tool. Like for example, if I want to maybe correct this girl's face a little bit. Not to say that she's ugly, because she's very beautiful, just the way she is. But we're making a few little corrections. So next is the clone stamp tool. Similar to the healing tool, the only difference is that it pretty much samples other pixels around the surrounding area where you're choosing. Here you're gonna have to hold the shift button. Let's say I want to clone this area, these pixels, onto this area right here. I would go ahead and shift. I'm clicking down on shift, click, and then I'm gonna go ahead and cover that. So I'm borrowing pixels from one area to put them on top of other pixels, okay? Next tool, we have the blur tool, which is pretty much straightforward. It makes things blurry. So if we select this, sorry about that. Let's say I'm gonna make this my brush a little larger. And in order to make your brushes larger or smaller, look at your keyboard, and the comma will be to make it smaller, and the period will be to make it larger. So let's say I want to blur out this section right there. You see how it blurs it out? The only problem with blurring out is that it's pretty much smudges the pixels. So it's not best. It's not recommended to use a lot. Maybe like in pictures that you wanna, if you have a background that's a little like, you wanna make it seem as if someone is running fast, you could use the blur tool so that it looks a little blurry at the back. Next tool, oh, I'm sorry. Within the blur tool, there's actually the blur, sharpen, and smudge, which is exactly what they are. They sharpen the image or they smudge the image. And then next we have the dodge tool, the dodge and the burn tool. So the dodge tool is used to lighten specific areas. And I want you to note that this tool also deals with contrast, light versus dark, and not the color. So although the color may seem sometimes that it appears to change, it's not working with the color, it's just adding darkness and lightness, okay? Of course, you could see this. If we take the dodge tool, we can lighten this area right here at the bottom. You see how it makes it a little light. Obviously, I'm not doing a great job at doing this right now because we're on a time, but you get the idea. Next, we have the sponge tool, which pretty much enhances the color. It makes it like pop up. It depends on the settings that you have, of course. So this is a great tool for like saturating or desaturating specific areas of an image. So like, for example, if I want to make this a little brighter, make her lip a little brighter, I can go ahead and do that and focus on that. That looks a little weird, so I'm not going to do that. Right? And if you notice in the history panel, it actually, this is all frozen. That's because I Command C all the way up to here. Next tool. Now these are our editing tools, and this starts with the pen tool and as well as the brush tool. These are pretty straightforward. They're used to like freehand drawing, which you can do, and this is a just to connect it to next webinar, this is what we're going to be talking about. So it'll be with digital art, of course. Right now we're doing just photo editing, right? And of course you have your eraser. You could erase. It does exactly what it says. And next we have our color replace. So the color replace tool, it replaces areas under like your brush with a new or desired color, while still preserving the texture and the shadows around it or underneath it. So you could go ahead and pick like maybe, and that it's coloring this color because if you notice, this is the color that I have right now. If you notice here at the bottom, that's the only reason why it's coloring like that. So let's delete that. Again, ugly. Next, we have the fill, or also known as the paint bucket, which pretty much it does what it says. It's gonna fill in. If you notice the little banana, how there's yellow bananas and then there's like a little pink banana. Well, that's exactly what it does. So you'll select like a section. Let's say I wanna select this and our fill color. Oh, I won't do it now. No, I didn't do it on that one. Oops. It works sometimes best with this. Well, that was my gradient, and that goes into the next step that I was going to talk about. So we have your fill color that you could fill in a specific area. You'll select it most likely with the lasso tool, not how I did with the marquee tool. That was an accident. Next, we have the gradient tool, and it's pretty much going to change. If you notice up here, your options, it's going to change. You could change the color. So if you want like this gradient tool or this one, you could add that. Let's say, since I haven't selected anything, I could just click and drag, and it's going to do gradient right across my canvas. But I'm not really looking to do that. Next tool. These tools fall more into the miscellaneous tools. So this tool, exactly what it says, it creates different shapes, stars, rectangles, did a rectangle there. And if you notice, it carries the colors that you're currently using right here at the bottom. Let's delete that. Next, we have the text tool.
So that shape tool would be good if you're making logos or something. You can pull out some shapes and manipulate them for logos, right?
Right, exactly. So your text tool, exactly what it tells you, you're able to type in, and you're able to put it in certain sections. Again, notice that the color is the colors that I'm using down here. Let's delete that. Next, we have our color picker. So here, if you notice, if I drag this, my arrow, I could go ahead and pick any color around the surrounding areas, right? So this is good, like when you're trying to blend in, let's say I'm trying to like cover these, the image, and I'm trying to correct it and make it a little better. I could go ahead and click on this color picker and use my brush to do a little bit of work on it. If you notice, I have an opacity of 15. If I increase that opacity, it's gonna be probably way too much. Oops, I'm not even working on that layer. Good thing I made this mistake, guys. If you noticed, it wasn't doing anything. It was because I was on this layer. You always have to make sure that you're working on the layer that you wish, that your layer is selected, the one that you're working on. Like you see this right here, that's a lot. So obviously that's why the opacity, you have to play with the opacity. You see how it lessens it a little bit more and it's a little bit more natural. I'm destroying this girl, poor thing. Next, we have the zoom in and zoom out. But again, my favorite is the navigator. It really just depends what you like. And we have the hand, which is pretty much just to move your image. If you're like way zoomed in, like you're able to move it around. Or a cool trick is, let's say that I don't want to go to this little hand. I just click on, hold the space bar, and it gives me the little hand as well. That allows me to go back and forth and move my image. Okay, so now we went through all of those tools. I know there are a lot. If you're interested in learning how to edit, you're gonna have to practice and practice and practice. That's just the way these resources work. You know, these tools work that way. So you're gonna have to practice. Now I'm gonna show you the image that I actually edit. So I'm gonna turn on that. I don't know what happened. What is, oh, remember when I was on the wrong layer? This is what happened. You see what happens when you're on the wrong layer? You mess up the other layers. Let me see this. There we go. Let me see. Okay, so this is the edited version. If you notice, I made her eyes a little bigger. I made her lips bigger. I changed a lot of things to her. I made it really exaggerated. Like, she does not look like natural, but I just wanted to get you to see what type of editing power you have. Okay, of course there's like better editors out there, photo editors out there that do way better of a job than me, but I'm just trying, and I was just trying to show it a little bit. Okay, now next is Hector, and he's going to be talking about photo composition. So let's go ahead and share.
Yeah, before you leave, I know Noah had a question.
Yeah.
This, how do you show your pictures with other people? But I'm not sure exactly.
So Noah, do you mean how do you like share your pictures or?
Yes. Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, I'll go ahead and cover that towards the end. But basically, when you save it, you can print it or you can download it to your computer, and then yeah, go to save. And then it gives you, you can give it a name, and then you choose the format. JPEG is the most common one, but you have different options, and you choose your resolution, how large the file is or how good the quality is, and then just click download, and that way you'll save it to your computer. And then you can email it or you can post it on your social media. If you're using the iPad or the iPhone version or through your phone, you can directly link it to your photos and either send it to Instagram or any other way. That's a very good question.
Yep.
All right, perfect. So I am going to show you guys how to do a little composition, which basically is putting elements from different pictures or using the different tools that Dinah showed us. So I'm going to be opening an image. So click open image from the main screen. And I'm going to open an image that I downloaded from Pixlr, which is the website that Jaden mentioned. These are all free to use and you can play around and practice with them. So I'm gonna pick this corgi, which is a little puppy that I found. So I'm gonna open that.
I love it. He's so cute.
And if you notice, when you're trying to open the image, it tells you at the beginning, well, this is a very large image. So you can resize it to save memory and minimize the jag. And you have different options. Ultra HD, you were to present it on a big screen TV, full HD on a computer or large screen. But I'm going to choose web since it's like a low size, but it's high quality still. So I'm going to click apply. And it's going to open up the image of the corgi. So the first thing we're gonna do, if you notice right here on your right-hand side, we have the layer. So we only have the original layer. So this is the original picture. And I can do a couple of things. First, I'm gonna go to the options with these 3 little dots. That gives you the options for that layer. So the first thing I'm going to do is maybe change the name, the corgi. I am going to unlock it just to keep it safe. Oops, and I'm also going to duplicate this little button, which has the 2 little squares right next to the trash can. That's to duplicate your layer. So I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate, and it's gonna make a copy of it. And if I make it invisible with this little check mark, you're gonna still see the original down underneath. And if I uncheck that one, then you will only see the background, when in this case, it's completely transparent. I'm gonna make this visible again. And you know what? I think just to be safe, like Jaden showed us, I am going to lock the original one so that nothing happens to that one. So once I have the original, my copy, I am going to be showing you how to extract that image. So right here, there's a little scissors, which is to cut out part of the image. So I'm gonna click on that. And like the Dinah mentioned, when you click on a tool, it gives you several options at the very, very top. The first one says shape mask. Then we have the magic mask, the brush, the lasso, and the gradient. And you do get 2 modes. One is to add to the mask, and the other one's to remove from the mask. So right now I have the shape mask, and I'm gonna show you guys. So I want to remove because, again, the purpose of this picture is I just want the puppy. I don't care about the little background, I don't the sidewalk, because I'm gonna be using a different picture for the background. So if I use the shape tool and I make sure I have remove from mask selected, you can click and make a little marquee, in this case, a little rectangle, and I let it go. And boom, you can see it deleted all those pixels. So it deleted that part. So that's the shape tool. If you have a square sign or a circle, these are really good tools to use for that. This is a little bit more complicated, as you can see. So I'm gonna show you the magic mask. This one, what it allows you to do is it picks similar colors. So I'm gonna click on that. And if you pick this particular gray color right over here, you see it deletes those similar colors. So that's a really good one if you have a strong looking background. Let's say that it was all green in the back, you can use that tool and boom, it will delete everything. Now the problem with it sometimes is if the colors are too similar, like that one was a little bit too white, so it took away a little bit of the fur of the puppy. So I don't want that. You can undo or go back in time if you go edit, undo, or control command C, or you can go back in your history like Dinah showed us, and you can go back all the way to the beginning. So that's a different tool. Let me go back a little bit more in time. Okay, that's pretty good. One more. The other one, which is really good for this example, is called the draw mask. So what this is like a little brush, and you click on it. And again, there's two modes, to remove and to add. So I'm gonna use the navigator to make it a little bit bigger so you can see. And again, the space bar is the little hand, so you can move around. And I'm gonna go all around the edge. And if you notice, you see that little red color? That shows us that that part is going to be deleted from the picture. Don't worry too much if you don't do it perfect. You see, I let it go and it deletes all that area. Doing this kind of process takes a lot of time. So you wanna make sure, depending on how complicated your picture is, I'm just doing it a little bit rough here so that you guys can get a good idea. But if you make a mistake, let's say that I took too much of the ear, you can go back to add mask, and now you go over the little area and it adds back what we removed. In this case, I took too much of the ear from the puppy. And if you notice, it switches, instead of red, it's now green. So let me keep going through this. Gonna do the remove mask and go ahead and do the rest of the puppy. Again, depending on how complicated your image is, this is gonna take quite a few minutes. I'm just gonna rest. So all around your subject. And as you can see, now it's not completely removed. So I'm gonna show you the other tools, which is the lasso mask. I already took care of the border, but now I can just go ahead and select all the other area that I didn't get. And with the lasso tool, I literally pick and choose everything that is outside of that area. And boom, as you can see, it removes all that other stuff. So when it comes to picture editing, sometimes you need to use more than one tool. So you need to play around with them and see what works best. Each picture is different. Sometimes you can do everything with just one tool. Other times it's a lot harder, and as you can see, you have to use multiple tools in order to remove the background. So there we go, now it's officially out. But sometimes you can see a little specks of imperfections, and a good way to check if it's properly masked or remove the background, you can add a little layer. I'm gonna choose empty. I'm sorry, let me go back to show you how I did that. There's a little plus button right here on the right. So when you click on that, it gives you the option of creating a new layer. You can do an empty layer. You can add an image from your computer, or you can create a text layer. So I'm gonna choose empty for now. Nothing happens, it's completely blank. And it puts it right above the corgi. So if I were to use the fill tool, which I'm gonna use, and I'm gonna choose a different color, this one. That's perfectly okay. And I click on the picture, you're gonna see that it's gonna turn everything yellow. Reason being that layer is on top of the corgi. So I'm gonna call this yellow tint, just for now, and click OK. And if I click on that layer, yellow tint, and drag it underneath the corgi, now you're gonna see that it appears as a background color. If you notice, there's still a little bit of imperfections. So let me go back to the cutout mask. And I think I can clean this up with a brush, again, the draw mask. Make sure you still have remove from mask. If you, by mistake, you do the add mask, let me just do it quickly. It'll add that color. Oops. And also, that's the other thing. Make sure that you're on the right layer. I wanna make sure I'm back on my corgi layer. So let's go to the remove from mask layer. And I'm going to click on those little imperfections. Again, when you're doing this, take your time. This is probably the most time-consuming part of the process. And you see I got a little bit of the paw. So if let me zoom in and use the little hand to move around. I took too much from the paw, so I want to make sure to add it back. And there we go.
So Hector, Noah has a question.
Uh-huh.
He said, so
go ahead.
can you change more than one picture or just one at a time?
You can do one at a time, but I'm going to show you how when you do them individually, you can add them all the way to the end. So each picture is going to go in its own layer, and I'm going to show you on the next image that I add to this composition. So this is going to be a composition. So you want to start with one picture first to work on that picture, and once you have it ready, then you can move to the next one and work on the other one, and then you combine them. So that's a very good question. But yeah, the program only works with one image at a time. So the corgi is completely resized, removed from the background. I'm going to resize it because of course it's a very, very large image. So if I go to edit, there's a tool called the free transform tool, or Control R. When you click on it, let me zoom out a little bit. Oh, let me click, hold on, let me zoom out a little bit so you can see it better. You see it puts this little border around your image, and that allows you to resize that image. I'm gonna make it smaller. I'm gonna put it somewhere here in the middle. Right now it doesn't matter. You can always move it around later. And click enter or okay, and it moves it. Now I'm going to add a background layer. So I'm gonna click the plus sign again and click image. I go back to my computer and I'm gonna choose a different picture. So I'm gonna be using this picture as my background. It's a wooden dock, and I'm gonna click choose. And it's going to take a little bit of time to open it up. And it puts it all the way to the top. And as you can see, there's a little border because it's a really big image. So I'm going to resize it. And I'm going to move it around. And again, you resize by going all the way to the corners. You can also rotate it. And you can basically adjust to any part. You can move it around. So right now, if you notice, this wooden dock is all the way to the top. So that's why you see everything blocked, because it's the only one that we're seeing. And of course, it takes the whole screen. I'm gonna click enter. Takes a little bit of time. And I'm going to move my puppy layer up. So now you see the puppy is on top of the background. And again, now I can move the puppy around and say, oh, okay, I don't like where it looks. It looks much better over here to the side. And this is the layer. Again, you can rename your layers by clicking on this little dots. And I'm gonna call this background. Click enter.
That is super cute.
Mm-hmm. So remember the shapes tool that Marlon mentioned before, that's a really cool tool to use for a logo. You can also use it to add shapes to your object. So I'm gonna go to the shape, and I'm going to, before I do that, let me create a new layer. The advantage of using individual layers, I'm gonna rename this one shape. And again, you can always change the name later on. The good thing about working with layers individually, like we're doing, is that you can move those objects around independently of each other. So that if you make a mistake or you want to make a change, you're not making a change to the whole composition. You're only making a change to one particular part. Let me go ahead and choose the color. I click on this little wheel right here, and then brings the color picker. Let me actually move this to the side so you guys can see better. And you can pick a particular shade of this color by moving it up and down. This is darker and lighter. Or if you move this little switch right here, this little wheel, you can choose different colors. Or another really cool tool is if you move outside of that area, you get the color picker, and you can choose a color from any part of your picture. So let's say that you like this particular blue from the mountain and you want to use that one, you can click on that and it select that. Or let me use, let me use this little dark brown so it stands out a little bit better. I'm gonna click OK when you're ready. And now we have that, and I'm going to pick a shape. And over here, you have all the different options. You have a rectangle, a rounded rectangle, the circle, but I'm gonna pick a heart because we love corgis. So I'm gonna click and drag the heart. And you see it has a little stroke, which is the border. So that's that little color, and it has the other background. So let me use the fill color, the little paint bucket that Danya mentioned. And gonna click inside, and now it's all one color. Again, with the navigator, you can zoom in. Make it bigger maybe. And with the hand tool, you can move around. So now I have my little heart. And with the text tool, I'm going to add a little message. Oop, text tool. When you click on it, all the way to the top, it asks you, do you want to add the text? And I say yes by clicking on the button. And it gives you some just generic text, which I'm going to change just by typing on top. I'm gonna type corgis. Corgis are awesome. And again, it's gonna stand the last color that I chose. So I don't wanna keep that because if I add it to my heart shape, it's the same color. So you're not gonna be able to read it. So you wanna make sure you click and drag to select your text. And again, when you go over here to the top, you can change the color. A nice one to choose will be white because that's a nice contrast. Click OK. You can change the size of it by clicking over here, and there's a little slider. You can make it much, much bigger or smaller. Or you can also type in the size right over here if you know it. I'm going 53% is pretty good. And over here on the right, on the left, you see the font type. If you click that little arrow, it allows you to choose different fonts. And the very cool thing, if you notice, is it shows you a little preview of what that font looks like on the screen. So for this case, I'm gonna choose Amaranth. It's a weird name, but I'm gonna choose that one. This is a nice color, nice font type. Then I move this a little bit so that it's a small shape, and I'm gonna add it in the middle to the heart shape. And this is the composition. So this is all the way to the top. If I were to move this to the bottom, then it will be hidden first by the heart shape box and then the picture of the background. But I want it to be on top of everything. So we're almost out of time. I'm gonna show you one more thing. If you notice the little puppy over here, I'm gonna make it bigger so that you can see it better. I'm gonna remove the ad. This is a free program like we mentioned, but if you opt to pay for the premium service, you don't get those little ads in the bottom. So I'm gonna go down to my Corgi copy layer. I'm gonna add a new one, empty, and I'm gonna drag it underneath. Let me hide this, the history, I don't need that. I'm gonna drag that layer right underneath the Corgi, and I'm going to use the brush tool because, like I mentioned, right now the Corgi looks like he's just floating. There's no shadow underneath, so it looks a little bit unrealistic. I'm gonna switch the colors, and I'm gonna pick the black color, and again, make sure it's the pure black all the way to the corner. I'm gonna use that brush tool to draw the shadow right underneath the paw. And since the puppy is right on top of the brush, it hides all the other parts that are not around. So that's a little shadow. Now that's a little strong. As you can tell, it's a little too dark. So, and it's, if you notice the picture, it's, like the evening or the early part of the morning. So it's not a full lit day. I'm gonna go to the options on the layer. And one of the options that we talked about was the transparency. And that is how sharp or how visible or invisible that layer is. I'm gonna drag this down to about 60%. And if you notice, the shadow starts to disappear. You can go all the way to 0 and it's gone. So it's like nothing happened. Somewhere in the middle is a nice shade. I'm gonna leave it around 60%. That looks pretty good. And it's a good time to, again, name your layers so that you don't get confused later on. Because the more layers you add, you're gonna add far more information and then you don't know what is what. So naming is really key. It helps you out a lot tremendously. And that's pretty much it. Let me minimize it over here so you can see the full picture. And that's my composition. You saw how I added, how I added a shape. I put the puppy on top of the background image, which is the mountains. Now, once you're done, I'm going to go to File, Save. And this is what Noah was asking about. I can give it a new name. I don't have to use the same name that I gave it originally. I can, I can call it My Favorite Pet. I can choose a type of file. JPEG will flatten everything. PNG we didn't talk about on this time, but before we did, it allows you to keep a transparency. In this case, there's no transparent background, but if you had a transparent background, it will conserve it. And PXD is the actual format that Pixlr uses. So I'm going to choose JPEG. The quality, I want it to be a nice quality, so high is pretty good. And click download. And when you click download, it's going to download it to your computer, and it tells you how much time you have left before it's done. I'm going to close it. And I'm going to open up my downloads just so that you guys can see the final result. Double click on the image, and there you go. That's the composition, and it's ready to send it via email to your grandma, or if you want to post it up on Instagram and put it on your Instagram account, you can do that as well. So that's how easy it is to do a composition. Let me know if you guys have any questions about anything that we covered on this quick lesson. But like Dinah said, practicing is what's gonna make you guys improve your photo editing process. Okay, I'm gonna throw it over to you, Marlon, or if anybody can let me know what they're putting in the comments for questions. All right.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions? I personally think this is awesome because I don't know how many of you guys use Photoshop already, but as you know, Photoshop is, I won't say expensive, but you have to pay for it. And that's why the staff here is teaching you about stuff that's free online that you can use. So let's see, what did Noah say?
Noah's commenting. That's funny. She's editing. Is that your sister that's editing the picture, or you as a toddler?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. That's funny.
Well, everybody's working from home right now for the most part. And, if you know how to use these tools, you could be making money just sitting at home using free stuff, free apps and free tools from right at home. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to the UMake staff because this is great information. Really good for you to be able to learn all of these free editing tools if you don't have Photoshop on your computer. And also, I just wanted to show you something really quickly because, you can go also to our library's website. Let me see if I can pull it up here. I had it open, I can't find it. Yeah, so here's our library's website, mdpls.org, right? And if you go to Miami-Dade Public Library System, I know someone said they're in Miami, so you probably already have a library card. And you go to our website, and you can access a bunch of really cool training tools by going to the home page, going right here to Learning and Training, right? And when you drop down a little bit, you'll see lynda.com. But if you click on Start Learning with Lynda right there, if you're in Miami and you have a library card, it'll take you to this window here, which is going to ask you for your library card number and the PIN. Just put that in, and then it will take you right through, and you'll be able to access lynda.com and all the features for free. It's really neat. But also, let me not get rid of my beautiful people here. But also, even if you don't have a library card, you can still go to lynda.com. And if you go down right here to the library, let me get out of there. So you see, I just clicked on library, and all you have to do is hover. And you can just see all the stuff you can learn about. Audio, music, you can learn about GarageBand and Logic Pro and all kinds of things. How to work in the studio, different topics. Even these learning paths over here, like how to become a producer, how to become a recording engineer, and everything is here. Business, do you want to be a business person? You can learn about business. You can learn about like Microsoft PowerPoint, Excel. Let's say you're into, a lot of you guys have been saying you're really into animation. Well, you go over here to the CAD tab, and you've got all kinds of animation software that you can learn about right there, different learning paths about being a technician, video, photography. It's really neat. And the cool thing about these videos that when you open one of them, for example, up here, 3D animation, I'll go to 3D animation for a second. When you open it, it'll show you a whole variety of these really professional videos that you can look at, whether you're a beginner. You can go down here and say, okay, you know, I only want the beginner videos, or I want the advanced, or I want the middle, intermediate. And you can watch a whole bunch of videos to learn how to basically learn any kind of software and all kinds of other different topics like business and career paths and everything. So if you guys, you know, have a Miami-Dade Public Library System library card, or if you have a computer and you can access lynda.com, you can do like a trial period for like a month, I think it is, but then you do have to pay for it afterwards. But it is something really cool to look into for a trial period if you're into it. So yeah, I just wanted to show you guys that, because basically what our UMake staff and our Technobus staff are showing you is a bunch of really cool tools that are free, that allows you to be professionals, and it's going to help you in business. It's going to help you in college. It's going to help you if you're in school right now and you need to do papers or projects for school. All of these tools are really, really excellent for you. So does anybody have anything they want to add before we wrap up for today?
No, everybody quiet.
I said no. All right. Well, we thank you guys for coming. Well, remember, you guys will still be able to watch these videos because we're going to be putting them up on our UMake Miami YouTube page. Okay, so check us out there. Check out our social media, Instagram and Facebook. And don't forget to check out our library system website as well. You'll find a lot of information. Good luck, Noah, Elizabeth, Zaria. I don't know who's still here, but thank you guys so much for coming. Zaria is saying August 17th is when she goes back to school.
Oh, okay, no, I think Noah was scared, but I think, yeah, it's the 17th, around that time when they go back to school.
Okay. All right.
So we'll see you at least a couple of days in August, Noah. And everybody else, Elizabeth, Zaria, thank you so much for coming. And we'll see you next week.
Yes, thank you for coming. See you next week.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye, everybody. Have a nice
Stay safe.
weekend.